Welcome back to the Made Alive podcast. We're so excited to have one of our staff members as a guest on this podcast with her husband, Vincent. So, Nikki and Vincent, welcome to the podcast. So excited to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, glad you're here. All right, we're going to kick it off. I just going to ask you guys to share a little bit about y'all, how you met, how long you've been married, anything else that you want to share. So go ahead. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Did you want to go or you?
We have different stories about how we met. I'll let Vincent tell his version because his kind of starts later on.
So we grew up in the same town together, went to schools all throughout our adolescence together. We actually grew up like 2 streets away from each other. I could walk to her house in like 10 minutes. But I remember her more vividly in my mind as a really cute girl in my Spanish class, either my sophomore or my junior year. But we were just always around. We were in choir together. She managed the track team that I ran on and stuff like that. So she was just kind of always near. And then after she put me in the friend zone and I fought my way out a little bit, she gave me a chance and we've been together ever since.
And how long is that? How long have you guys actually been together?
We've been together 13 years. And on the 30th, we celebrate 11 years married.
Yeah. Wow. That's a long time.
Yeah.
That's cool. Nikki, what's your version of that story?
Oh my goodness. I remember Vincent has a twin, and I remember Vincent and his twin in elementary school, and his twin remembers playing with me at recess and all of that. Vincent doesn't remember me, which I think is so funny. But we don't have a specific, like, this is when we met, and I could tell you like what happened. But I know that we got really close and started becoming really good friends around my freshman year, Vincent's sophomore year. So we were best friends for like a solid, 2 years before we even started dating.
Yeah, 2.5 years.
And that I feel like is actually a really important part of our story, is the fact that we were best friends before.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't into him like that. That's why he says I friend zoned him. Was afraid of losing my best friend if I tried it and it didn't go well. And I had a couple of my close friends encouraging me. They're like, just give him a chance. And it was the best thing I ever did. So
good.
Yeah.
Well, okay. That means y'all got married pretty young. I knew that, but y'all got married like pretty much right out of high school. Is that right?
Almost. So I joined the Marine Corps after high school, and after about a year in the Marine Corps, I proposed. We got married like 3-4 months later.
I was almost fresh out of high school. Yeah. I was 18. Vincent was 19.
Yeah. So like really quickly.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, we should talk a little bit about that too, about the challenge of getting married so young, and y'all have stuck it out. I feel like that sometimes that's not the case. There's a lot of people who get married young who in their mid-20s, go their separate ways. So I'd love we can talk a little bit about that too. But you also have 2 girls, right? So 2 little girls.
Yeah, really busting.
No, that's okay.
She's 7. And Melody, she's about to have a birthday on April 3rd. She'll be 4.
Awesome. I love that. So you're an interracial and an intercultural couple. So what are anybody who's watching this knows that. Anybody who's not, right? They're not going to see you, and so it's important that we name that.
Right.
So obviously at LifeGate, one of the things that we hold really high is being an intercultural community, and with that means we have a lot of interracial and intercultural couples. And so I think that there's been a lot of questions coming up about some of the challenges that you've experienced and the beauty of it as well. So we're going to talk about both of those sides, but we're going to start with the challenges side. So what are some of the challenges you've experienced in navigating being an intercultural, interracial couple in dating and then in marriage?
You want to go first?
Yeah. So we, I think, had in our favor that growing up, we were raised very similarly. Because we lived so closely, went to all the same schools, we were around the same culture, so to speak, in, just every day, like our schools and all those things. So that definitely helped us. Obviously, there are different cultures from each of us individually with our families. But our families were kind of similar. We both came from families of believers, which was very helpful, of course.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was definitely in our favor, but I guess the struggles or challenges that we faced would probably be for sure on my side. I heard growing up my entire life, don't bring home somebody outside your race. And so that first and foremost was probably the most in our face challenge right off the bat. Yeah. And so taking that into marriage, I think it was pretty resolved by the time we got married, but I think a lot of people know that those feelings run kind of deep. So it's not that they haven't resurfaced and that we haven't re-experienced things, but I think once we were married, people realize there's really not a whole lot you can do. And I think just beyond that, in an everyday sense, you've got people who look at us, see us together and do not like it, do not want us together. So, yeah, for us, that's not so much a challenge anymore. We're pretty used to it and how to navigate that. But for someone who might be asking that question, that can definitely be challenging.
Yeah, Nikki, was that from your direct immediate family? Was that from extended family? How close was that to you?
Yeah, so my dad actually, and his side of the family, my dad is the one who told me myself and my brothers, don't bring home someone outside of your race. And then we faced a lot more.
Neither of you listened. It's okay.
We're married, yeah. Yeah, my dad, it didn't end there. Of course, when I brought Vincent home, it just kind of continued. And
sure.
Yeah, he didn't want to give Vincent his blessing. He didn't initially when Vincent asked him. And he kind of just really fought, just kept fighting, thought he was going to discourage me, was trying to plant seeds of discouragement in my head so that I break up with him, even went so far as to kicking me out, which I went. So
wow.
Definitely tried to keep us apart.
Yeah. What did those conversations look like? Because I know, obviously, you are still in relationship with your dad somewhat. And so that, what did that look like as you all navigated that? And then how, clearly Vincent is in your life. And so what have been the ramifications of that? Obviously, you've been together now for quite a long time. And so has that softened over the time?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think I don't know about her specific conversations with her dad, but for us, it was just more one of those things where we knew we just had to grow tighter together and realize that we had to lean on each other, because outside of her immediate family or people that we knew and stuff like that, there's always going to be somebody or something that's going to try and come between us. So as long as we're leaning on each other and leaning on God, it was one of those things where it didn't really matter what anybody else said or what anybody else kind of tried to do to kind of drive a wedge between us, because we weren't going to let it happen in the first place.
Totally. Well, Nikki, you shared a little bit. Vincent, what are some of the challenges that you've experienced in navigating dating and in marriage? Obviously, that's a big one. So have there been anything else that feels
I wouldn't say that we had a lot of direct challenges on my side of the family. Nikki could probably even tell you she's had one of the greatest relationships with my mom and my dad since I think even before I brought her home and was like, hey, this is my girlfriend. My mom was actually really surprised at one point that I hadn't proposed to her sooner. Or that I was going to propose. She's like, I thought you were going to do this months ago. So it wasn't that, but I think any relationship too, it's just the meshing of two people. And when you're meshing with two people, it's just trying to get a different understanding. And we had this conversation earlier today, just bringing in the things of our experiences and our relationships and our families that we liked about it and wanted to bring into our relationship together, and kind of just throwing out the bad things. We didn't want any of the negativity or anything like that to kind of impact our relationship together.
Yeah. I think that that's true for non-interracial couples, right? Of examining your family dynamics and then deciding what do we take and what do we not take. And so what did that process look like for you all as you're navigating all of these different things, right? And you guys are also pretty young when you get married. So how are you navigating that? Just, being pretty fresh out of high school. Vincent, sounds like, you went into the Marines, right? But what did that navigation of deciding what to take and then what to just kind of let fall away look like?
Can I say something?
Yeah, go for it.
Pre-marriage counseling. We went through two different for multiple reasons, but we went through pre-marriage counseling on our own at first, just because we wanted to make sure that we had a really solid foundation. We were going through our church at the time. We wanted to understand how to communicate better because in the past of what we've seen in our parents' relationships and in relationships in our family, we wanted to make sure that when we got married, we weren't going to separate. Our marriage is something that we wanted to keep for forever. So we wanted to have a really strong backbone through God and through our relationship together. So we went through pre-marriage counseling once, and then actually to end up getting a pastor for our wedding, we ended up going through pre-marriage counseling again, which just brought even more experience and understanding with each other, and learning how to communicate with each other. So I would say that would be a really huge thing that kind of catapulted us forward in our relationship, was having that backbone of not only having God in our life and in our relationship and focusing on him, but also understanding how do we communicate together? What do we need to do when we're, having an argument? What are our expectations when it comes to marriage and relationship and kids and church and moving and living and all the other plethora of things? It was just a really good, solid way for us to kind of have an understanding of each other.
Yeah, it's good. I think that, let's just reiterate that pre-marriage counseling is a great thing. It's fabulous, super important, and is vital actually for people getting on the same page.
Being so young, I think it was I can't speak highly enough about it. It was probably the best thing for us.
For sure. I mean, yeah, obviously I was not that young when I got married, but I can't imagine also being that's a lot of things to be processing through, of linking your life with another person and figuring out how you do that. Obviously there's been good and beautiful parts about the differences between you all. Obviously you grew up in a very similar culture because you're from the same town and you had the same community growing up in a lot of ways. Did you guys go to the same church growing up, or did you go to different churches?
Kind of. Yeah. Vincent's family was at the same church. I was pretty much at the same church my entire life, or entire adolescence, I should say.
Sure.
Vincent's family was there for, I think, a good chunk of time.
10 years, give or take.
Yeah.
Okay.
So kind of.
And then we actually, into the pre-marriage counseling, we actually started going to church together on our own while we were still dating. Yeah. So we had our own small church community that we were kind of going towards.
Yeah, what made you decide to do that? That's an interesting. I mean, as you're what, late teens, right? Guys deciding to do that together. What prompted that?
To be honest with you, a lot of it I think was kind of spurred by me. I think I had some church hurt that kind of pushed me away from the church that I grew up in, and I was like, I don't think this is our home church. It just doesn't feel like this is where God is calling us. And, I think at that point in our lives, we had decided and we're still this way, but communication was so important. And I would stress that, as well as pre-marriage counseling, the importance of communication. And I mean, looking back and the fact that we were mature enough to realize that at that age, I'm like, right. Yeah, that must have been a God download, But yeah, I think it was mostly me and Vincent, because he had, gone off to the Marine Corps, and I don't think he really had a home church right before he had left. He was kind of just yeah, let's go and try this other church. And I think we might have visited it a couple of times before. Yeah. And then it became our home church before we got married. So I think that was definitely because of me, just because of some church hurt.
It was 100% for you, because before I joined the Marine Corps, my mom had kind of given me and my brother the choice of hey, I'm going to church on Sunday. Do you want to come? And I was, walking on my own at the time. I was still believing, but I was just kind of nah, I'm good. It's cool. I don't really have to go and stuff like that. So I didn't have a church home to go to. And kind of going back to our backstory and stuff like that, I was lucky enough to get stationed to where it was about an hour and 15-minute drive home every weekend. So when I had off in the Marine Corps, I would drive home, sleep in my own bed at home, and we would go to church on Sundays, hang out on the weekends, and all that other stuff. So it was just kind of something that we built into our routine. And like she said, it was something that she kind of pushed more. She's like, we're going to church on Sunday. And I was just like, okay, we'll go to church on Sunday. So
yeah, Yeah.
He's in his own bed at home in his mom's house, by the way. I feel like I should.
Yeah. To clarify, in own bed at home, he was still like a teenager, right? So he's coming
years old.
18.
19, had my
18,
little Ford
yeah.
Ranger driving from San Diego to Riverside every day.
Oh, that's funny. So obviously y'all have, I mean, yeah, we talked about like you have differences in the way in which I'm sure each of your family units operated. And so what are some of the beautiful ways you've seen your differences either in the way you all grew up or whether that comes through any intercultural things? Have you seen that strengthen and equip your marriage as you're trying to pursue God in that?
I think you explained this one really well when you talk about hair, food,
Oh, yeah. So I think for us specifically, it kind of gave us something to kind of like buy into for each other, right? So like one example that we were talking about this morning is you can't see it on the audio, obviously, but I have very long dreadlocks. And she actually does them for me. She's done my hair for the past, 4 years, 5 years. And it's one of those things where culturally you don't know of a lot of non-black people doing black people's hair. And it's something that she also for our daughters, she does their hair, buying into and understanding. When I was deployed, actually, she lived with my mom for a period of time, and learning how to make some of my favorite foods, learning how to do some of the things that was culturally the same for me and my family. For me and my family, I think that was huge. It was just one of those things where it gave us something to kind of lean into for each other, and that she like leaned into specifically for me.
Yeah. Vincent, what's your family's heritage? Like, I guess I don't actually know that.
Black, African
Black.
American. My mom's
Okay,
from Philadelphia.
cool.
My dad was actually born in Colorado, but grew up in California.
Awesome.
So just African American. Most of my family is from the South, Alabama, North Carolina region, and then back east.
Awesome.
Genealogy.
Oh yeah, I did do a genealogy, so I'm Ghanaian. One day I'm gonna go back, but
Yeah, no, but I mean, you are like a Black American, right? And so like that's important. And so you both have more American backgrounds, but like also from the Black community in America, Vincent. So I think that's really important. So, Nikki, do you have anything? I know that you're keeping Eva behind you right there, but
yeah, I'm like, oh.
Do you have anything that you want to share in the ways that you've seen your differences strengthen and equip your marriage?
Yeah, I think, it can go either way. You can either be married and have very different cultural backgrounds and kind of be deterred or discouraged by that and think, like I'll never live up to, his mom or, vice versa. Like, you know what I mean? It could go either way. And so, I think instead of feeling that way, I kind of just, I never felt that way. I was like, I'm just going to embrace this. And I had like this hunger to learn, how to cook, soul food specifically, which my mother-in-law is the one who taught me that, and how to do their hair. It actually started with the girls' hair because Vincent didn't have locks until right before Melody was born.
Yeah, I'm sure you didn't have those in the Marine Corps, right?
That's
not allowed. So
I just wanted to. I genuinely wanted to learn and to be the one who did those things. I wanted my girls. I grew up having curly hair and not curly like my girls, obviously, but my mom didn't know how to handle my hair, and so I often in my childhood pictures I look like a boy. My hair is just pulled back in a low ponytail. She didn't know what to do with it. And so I remember always telling myself, like, I'm going to learn how to do my girls' hair and I want them to love their hair. So that's always been really important to me. So I think, embracing that has definitely strengthened us because I think I can definitely say like he appreciates it. And I think one day the girls will say, yeah, like my mom always did my hair and, I love my hair because my mom or whatever. So yeah, I think it has definitely strengthened us in that sense. And I think also just the willingness to want to be a part of each other in that sense kind of just grows you closer together.
Totally. Yeah, that's really beautiful. That was gorgeous. I have nothing to say out of that. That was awesome. So there was a couple of questions that came up in our marriage Q&A that we did for the marriage series. And so, I just love your all thoughts on these, specifically related to being in interracial couples, or interracial relationships, I should say, not couples, but what are your encouragements or advice for those navigating interracial relationships?
I think I said it earlier. Like, you got to lean on each other a lot more than you try and lean on everybody else. And like having a foundation of God in the center of that is huge, right? But at the same time, like I was telling Nikki the other day, like I don't let people talk about her a certain way just because my wife doesn't look like me, right? Like where I work and stuff like that, I work with a lot of kids, and so they'll see my wife and be like, "Oh, you're married to the white girl, right?" I'm like, "No, you're gonna put some respect on her name. That's my wife, right? Her color doesn't necessarily define her to me. She's my wife first." And so like leaning on each other like that, buying into each other's culture, and to things that you guys do together to kind of mesh, I think is huge for that.
Yeah. I think it's also important to, and it shouldn't be this way, but I think it's also important to kind of go into it knowing if you don't already have thick skin, you might want to develop some. Because, people are going to say things like we had multiple instances. I don't know if we were married yet. I can think of one time in a Walmart parking lot.
Oh, man.
Where, people like to yell things out, like mean things. And you've got to just kind of learn to realize that their thoughts and opinions on you don't hold any weight. Yeah, it really is bothersome, and sometimes it does hurt your feelings. But I think, unfortunately, that is a part of being in an interracial relationship or marriage in this world, because people are mean and hateful.
Yeah. Have you all felt like there was any time where, like Vincent or Nikki, where you felt like you had to address something being said? Like, have you had any of those moments where it was like, it was so bad that you're like, something has to be said right now?
We've had a couple situations within our own family, actually. Yeah.
Oh man, I am so sorry, guys. Like, that is so hard. Because like
my kids, I'm like, you can say what you want about me, but my girls, no.
Yeah, that's really, really hard. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Sorry, that was a bit of a personal question, so I hope that didn't step over a line. But yeah, obviously, this next question is also a little bit challenging, and Vincent, it probably is more geared towards you. And so, how do you work up the courage to date interracial when you're worried your skin color is looked upon as "quote unquote" not good or not favorable?
That's so heartbreaking, because like the first thing that I think of my head is like, who told you that?
Yeah, right.
Like, who told you that your skin color was like undesirable or not wanted or something like that? Like I think back to the Bible verse where I was told like God did not put a spirit of fear in you. You're supposed to be strong and courageous, and like that's what I am. And like I would love to talk to that person, whoever that is, if they wanted to come and like DM me or write me or just come find me in church or something like that. But like, because like we're all made in God's image, right? And so that's my belief and that's my understanding. Like, there's no such thing as being undesirable or being unwanted or something like that. You could be scared. I could understand being in a different situation and not like understanding or not how to approach or something like that. But like at the same time, like there's nothing in my head that says to me that like just because you are of a darker complexion, you're undesirable. Like you are blessed and highly favored every single time.
Amen. That's good. The Imago Dei, right? The image of God rests inside all humanity. So
I think unlearning that has to happen there. I think it's similar to hearing, good hair versus bad hair in the Black community, right? Like, no such thing. We need to stop using that kind of language. There's no such thing as good skin, bad skin. Yeah, that's really sad. That's definitely something that I think like it goes a little deeper than just like, how do I navigate this? Like, yeah.
Yeah, when I read this question and when I sent it over to y'all, I was really just thinking about that. I would hope that this person can maybe find mentorship with couples like y'all or like plenty of other interracial couples in any community, right? That they can create some sort of relationship with those people to maybe begin to unpack some of the pain and that has been caused them by this. And so I don't know if that feels like something that you all feel like would be helpful for this person, but as I was thinking about it, I was like, man, being in relationship with some interracial couples, specifically ones that look like the one that you're hoping to be in, would probably be helpful to navigate and unpack some of the things that are sitting underneath this question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
No, but it's true, because I think the more that you're around, I mean, thinking back when we first started dating, we weren't surrounded by couples who looked like us, not even in high school. I mean, when I think about our friends, like, I think we were the only interracial, at least black and white, couple. And so I think I could imagine that, being around other couples and you're seeing their relationship thrive and, oh, this can work. I would imagine that would be really encouraging, and that you would see, oh, this is a possibility, because I definitely understand, like, the fear and the timidity to be, a part of that kind of relationship or put yourself in that situation. Because yeah, it's definitely different. Definitely different.
Yeah. Do y'all feel like you have, obviously you didn't have it in high school, but do you feel like you've had that since high school? Or did you have any couples who were walking with you, like any older couples who were walking with you all as you were navigating being in interracial marriage?
I don't think we specifically had interracial couples.
No, we just had some couples in general.
Yeah.
Just kind of. I remember the Kings back when we lived in San Diego. They were an older couple that kind of mentored and just brought us under their wings as like a, hey, like, you're young and out here, like, come hang out with us. Thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think, not specifically.
Yeah, I don't think
Not
so.
specifically. Yeah, no, that's okay.
Not until we were older, and we found the home church that we had in Riverside before we moved out to Colorado. It was called LIFEGATE Church. Once we got there, that church was very diverse and a lot like LifeGate, and we were definitely surrounded by that there.
Not just that, too. A lot of young couples too.
Yeah.
They were closer to us. I know a couple of the
Yeah.
guys that were at church when we went to high school together and stuff like that. So it was one of those, like, we were surrounded by a lot of couples aiming towards the same, the same goal, aiming towards like the same walk, basically.
Yeah. No, there's just like power, right, in community in that. And so I was just curious if y'all have experienced that. I'm going to pivot a little bit and ask a question that I didn't prep you for, so sorry.
Not ready.
But I already have done that, I guess. Yeah. You obviously were married kind of young, so I'm sure we have a handful of people in our community and listening to this podcast who are either were married young or are thinking about getting married in their teenage years. And so what advice would you give for them? Obviously, you mentioned pre-engagement counseling as an important thing, but like, what would you say to them as they're navigating, is this the right relationship for me, whether they're high school sweethearts, as I mean, you guys are, or, like early college or whatever that would be. What would you say to them? And what advice would you give to them?
I would say probably the first thing is having an understanding that you guys have to have the same morals or ideas kind of aligning towards the same thing, right? So we want to be married. We want to have some crazy rugrats running around, or like whatever that may be. You have to have these conversations early. And then I think the second one would be, Nikki will probably agree with me, is that you have to learn that you're growing together through a lot of this, right? So getting married at 18, 19, like we were, we still had a lot of growing up to do. Even now, we still have a lot of growing up to do. So understanding that I'm a person growing and she's a person who's growing into her own self as well. We have to grow together and then lean on God between all of that is like a huge, that God is literally the glue that like helped stick us together through the tough nights, through the longer days, and like all of that hard stuff in between.
Strand cord is not easily broken.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Oh. Well, guys, thank you so much.
You want me to?
What?
As I could piggyback off of that a little bit if you want me to.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so how Vincent was mentioning, oh man, I lost my train of thought. He was
a lot of distractions happening right there.
There are a lot of distractions happening. Yeah, I think, that's what I wanted to say. It's been a huge topic of conversation for us our entire marriage. I think that whether you get married young or not, we see a lot of marriages that end in divorce. And I think oftentimes what's happening is, we're always growing, like Vincent was saying, and our biggest goal has always been, we know we're going to grow. We know it's part of life and it's going to happen, but we have to grow together instead of apart.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I think is so important. And then the only other thing I wanted to say, because we had so many friends, we're in our young 20s. We didn't have kids yet, but I would have friends like, I want your life. I want to be married. I want to have kids soon. Da, 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 da. And I would just encourage them, like, if it's not the time, don't force it. Don't rush it. Enjoy being unbound, being able to just get up and go travel.
Enjoy not having kids.
Yeah,
Yeah, enjoy the silence sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously we wouldn't change it, and I would do it all over again, every single bit of it. But I think unless you're absolutely sure that this is the person that God has for you, there is no reason to want for that. There really is.
And you'll know, like, God will give you that sign. You'll get that, like, gut feeling, women's intuition, whoever, like, you will know.
Discernment.
Discernment.
For what I was saying. But, like, you'll know. And when you know, that's when it's time to start, like, diving in head first.
Yeah. I think it is not worth rushing, though, especially if you're that young.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Well, Vincent, Nikki, y'all are just a joy. Well, seriously, I think we could just like talk for probably another hour, but I'm trying to keep these to bite-sized pieces so that way people can really engage in it. So thank you so much. I'm really appreciative of y'all taking the time, and thank you to your girls for making a quick little appearance there. So fun. But seriously, just so grateful for both of you and for the way in which you are just stewarding your marriage for the kingdom of God. Like, we really appreciate you, and Jalen and I really appreciate you. I know LifeGate really appreciates you. So thank you guys for taking the time to be on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Too.
Thanks.